hope you're all well. I hope you're all thriving. Hello to America's beautiful children. We love you. And so this week we have an exciting uh, series of guests, as always. But before we bring today's guest out, I just wanted to give you a challenge. And that challenge is to, when you get up in the morning, think about the task that you least want to do, the one that's the most challenging, the one that you kind of try to put off until a later time, because it's just one of those things that you're like, oh my God, I dread, I don't want to do this, and do it first. Conquer that first, and then teach your children as well, model that, and also help them to take the hardest task and try to make it first in your day. And what I find is that alleviates the all day thought and dread and avoidance of wanting to do that task, and it helps us to become more productive and more effective. And so I hope that encourages you, just a small tip. But today we have a special guest, and his name is Nehemiah Frank. Hello, Nehemiah. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Out here, looking forward to a week out of the 100+ degrees. And so I think that we're going to be doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm still in quarantine. Our state is slowly opening up, but there's still a lot of things that are closed here, and it's definitely not 100 degrees outside. It's probably like 55 degrees.
Can't come visit, but I would love to be where you're at visiting in that weather, right? And so tell everyone who's watching who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Nehemiah Frank. I live in Oklahoma. I am the founder and editor-in-chief for the Black Wall Street Times, which is a digital news media company. And we focus on issues around educational injustice, social justice, economic injustice, and health injustice issues. So those are the issues that we focus on. And I also write a lot about education because I used to be an assistant principal at the school, Sankofa, and I also taught there for several years.
So talk about the Sankofa school that you used to be the assistant principal at. That sounds amazing.
So Sankofa, first of all, how many schools are named Sankofa?
Right.
I remember the first day I walked into this school. The first thing I noticed was, not to get political, but I noticed a picture of President Barack Obama on the wall at the school. And I thought that was pretty cool. But as I walked all the way into the school, I noticed how colorful the school was.
Wow.
It had red walls, yellow walls, green walls. It was very, yellow walls. They had yellow walls. And on the walls were littered with Black excellence.
Wow.
The entire, the entire space was very powerful for everyone, not just the kids, but for anyone who would walk into Sankofa.
And I find that it is absolutely necessary to be able to be surrounded by images that look like me, ones that were leaders, so that I could be inspired, so my children could be inspired with someone that directly reflects them, and they can know that that's possible, and so that's amazing that the school was set up that way. How is the school doing before COVID?
The school is doing amazing. It is definitely one of the top performing academic primary institutions in the state, regardless of the fact that the majority of the students that attend the school are African American. So very, very high scores. I believe there was one year where the school was ranked easily in the top 10 charters in the state. And so, I support all schools. I just so happened to get lucky enough to work at Sankofa.
And I have to say that I've had the experience of being able to visit schools, not named Sankofa. I love that name, but that also have similar framework and ideology, and have the imagery in the schools, and the children are just doing great. And I always leave there with this bittersweet feeling where, like, I'm happy for the kids that actually were able to get.
I'm sorry. I think I lost your audio. I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now.
I'm sorry. When the wind blows, it's, kind of bad. You can hear and see me now.
Yes, I can.
Okay. So what I was saying was that, you know, I am always inspired by my experience of going into schools, maybe not named Sankofa, but have similar framework, and, just that cultural congruence piece. And I always walk away from that with a bittersweet feeling, right? Like, this is being done here, and that's great. And I'm glad for the kids that are here. But I know of so many other kids that really need this type of education. And we should be supporting, replicating that for our children. And so talk about your feelings about that.
Oh, I'm so happy that you brought that up, because that's something that I thought about every single day when I went to the school, and especially when I left the school. I remember particularly one day I was leaving the school, and I saw the kids getting off of a bus, and I knew that they had probably attended, one of the public schools. And so it's unfortunate that, the public schools that are in our community, and by our community, I mean Black community, they're just not doing, super well. Even in the Latinx community, they're not doing well. And, I always felt for, I felt for those kids.
Yeah.
But I particularly remember, like, driving and just having this sadness overwhelm me, because I'm like, man, the kids that I get to teach at my school, they have a really structured system. They're empowered from the walls to the words that come from our mouths as instructors. But what's going on with these kids here? And so, that's what kind of inspired me to really start writing more about education and educational justice. That's one of the reasons why I ended up joining organizations like the National Parents Union and Education Post, or RIPing, because, they're doing the work, they're advocating, they're putting out conversations to the forefront, so people can have conversations about, these kids here are doing good, but the majority of our kids, they're not doing good.
Exactly.
And so how do we combat that? And so I combat that through showing up to, the school board meeting. Even though I'm in my own district, I'm advocating for kids and for parents so they can have, better outcomes for their kids.
And I find that, just empowering and arming the parents to fight is great. It's huge, right? That's what we do.
Yeah.
We get this information out there so that we can arm the parents with what they need so that their children can thrive, right? But I also find that having the advocates and external organizations and other people to back them and stand with them, and also, we do that through several ways. Me as a civil rights activist, I do it through Power of the Press, right. Showing up, arming parents and youth, but also speaking out just publicly about injustices. And that doesn't come without an attack. It's like, it happens.
I know that.
Right. And so, we just, like, that's just the way that it is. And I think that we accept it and say, we're still going to fight anyway, because this is generational. We're talking about education, liberation, the mode and the means by which you can be totally free and liberated in some aspects. And so right. I so appreciate that. How's the Black Wall Street Times doing right now?
So the Black Wall Street Times, we're hitting a boom. And I think it's probably because, we kind of switched it up a little bit. It might also have something to do with the fact that everybody's trapped in the house. So all of the writers are writing more. And we're doing like, less field visits and those types of things. But also being connected to, other organizations and pulling in more content that's relevant to people's lives. I think, that's probably one of the reasons why we're doing so well now.
What has been your biggest challenge, as a Black man in Oklahoma, fighting for educational justice, fighting for, what is happening with Black people, brown people, what has been your biggest challenge that you faced?
I would say the first biggest challenge was just getting people to understand the importance of teaching history.
Right.
The history of, the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. That is Oklahoma history. It's American history. And it's a story that for the longest time wasn't told. Some of my mentors in the late 90s had fought to pass legislation for it to be taught in schools. And so that legislation was passed, but it wasn't mandatory. And so it's like, well, how do you shift the mindset of the culture to get people to see the importance of teaching, all American history? And the importance is, it helps children learn how to empathize with other people's narratives.
Right. I totally agree. I've had these really hard conversations with the English department and the history department.
Oh,
You know
Lord.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, gotcha.
And I'm like, if it's not in the core curriculum, then you can supplement. Here, let me help you. We got this supplemental materials right here. Let's see if you could do that, right? And it's just that unrelenting battle to get the proper and appropriate and true narrative out. And I see where you could be opposed on that because people are creatures of habit.
Yep.
And so what they have traditionally known, if you push past that, it makes people become highly uncomfortable. But again, that discomfort is necessary in order to bring forth generational progress and change, and so, what's going on right now during this time that you're covering as far as stories are concerned?
Well, I would definitely say, like, as far as the school's concerns are, TPS is probably doing a pretty good job. I would say they're probably doing better than most school districts. They're passing out laptops to the kids. The kids that are age appropriate and ready to use a laptop if they need to. But there's definitely the disparity gap that's been exposed. We as people of color, we already saw it. We knew that COVID-19 was going to strike with an iron fist to our community. But now, everything that we had been saying for years, those people that are in power are seeing it and they're like, oh, we're like, hey, well, we already been telling you this for like the last 24 school board meetings that our kids needed this. And, so.
And we've had these conversations about, people feeling uncomfortable with the level of information being brought out. Now we see this stark realization, crisp and clear, about what we've been fighting for and what we've been talking about. And so I just, admonish everyone to continue to push past those discomfort levels, right? I say that if you push past the discomfort level, the breaking point is the breakthrough point. Like, let's have some effective dialogue and movement, not just in the sense of, we're talking about our kids today, we're talking about what's happening to Black and brown kids, but then you walk away and there's no action plan. And there's no real felt impact that trickles down to our children so that they know it and we realize it, right? And so we'll just continue to battle on through various modes, which is exciting. So what do you see, upcoming for you in the fight for quality education?
Well, I would say as the Black Wall Street Times is a vehicle, that lifts voices for unheard people. Our goal is just to continue to grow as a national outlet. So the everyday mom that's sitting in her house saying, "Hey, my kid and the kid next door and the kid next door, we need this, and we've been saying this forever, but the school board isn't doing anything." And then we've gone to local media and they're not doing anything. Well, that's why we're here, because if they don't think that our stories and what we're dealing with is important, then we're going to put it out there. And then once we put it out there, it's said, it's chiseled in written stone, so to
Right.
speak. So the parents, they have media that will support their movements. And I think that's why the Black Wall Street Times has been important and why it will continue to be important in the future.
I love the name too, right? Just even that has probably captured many people's attention, like refreshing. Like I could come and read relevant information and also just stay up to date on this information and have a place where my voice will be heard and realized, not censored, right, or blocked, not sugar coated or deodorized, right? And so tell people how they can find your digital periodical.
Yeah, so we're online. We're strictly a digital paper because that's affordable. And we're on the social media outlets. So if you're on Instagram, Facebook, most of if we publish on the Black Wall Street Times, it automatically comes out on Facebook and Twitter. And so if you're on if you have access to those social media networks, then you can catch us. And if you're not a fan of social media, then you can just type up www.bwstimes.com and it'll send you directly to our website, or you can type up the Black Wall Street Times, spelled completely out, and you'll still be able to find us.
That's amazing, and I love the books in the background. It just
I have a lot of them.
Right. And so, I have to ask this question, especially within my generation, because we see just some blatant, acts of hate taking out our people, killings, different things like that. Yeah. And, it makes us feel some kind of way, right? Like, what can we do to bring forth action? Because obviously we're still at this place over here, this is horrible. And so how do you manage to stay balanced when you see things like that?
Oh my goodness, this is a heavy question. Let me just think about it for a second. Being in news media, it's hard because I have to report what's going on, and we have to report the facts.
Right.
So with that said, I'm constantly around it. But I have like TV shows and stuff, or if I fall into a good book, I'm writing my own family history out in a book. And so
Amazing.
That helps me get away from, the reality of what we're dealing with today. But yeah, I don't think that it's the responsibility of Black people to fix, racism. I think it's the responsibility of, the people that are, that have the privilege of making the rules and making the laws. I think that, they need to step it up. So because I own my own publication, I can call folks out and say, hey, y'all need to do this. Yeah. Like Black folks need to be going to a spa to, to get some treatment for the racial weathering that we've been experiencing for over 400 years.
Right.
So this is your responsibility to eradicate racism in this world.
Right. And I totally agree. Being involved in just the humanitarian piece and the civil rights piece, calling for human dignity and respect, right? Mm-hmm. Calling for human dignity and respect for our children. And what I've noticed is that there's no middle ground, right?
Yeah.
Either you're fighting against oppression or you're on the side that still is agreeing with the oppression. And those people that feel like they can just take a silent back seat, well, that silence becomes permissive, right? And you've just given your permissive will to let these things continue to happen. And so that responsibility of fighting against oppression needs to be a shared responsibility. It's not totally up to us to say, okay, here you've been oppressed, now come free you and you free yourself and your kids, right? No, there needs to be some action partners in it, people that are willing to speak up and not just sit and watch things happen. And so I totally appreciate you saying that. We're talking about self-care, right? That balancing thing. You could become traumatized by everything that you see around you, by the experiences that you have and that you can share with your parents, your grandparents, your aunts and uncles. That becomes like a traumatizing norm, and you don't want to be in that type of norm. And so it's participating, being an active participant in your own self-care. And so I so appreciate you talking about, I'll just go get in a book or, watch a movie, right? What piece of advice would you share for parents who are watching and caretakers?
Well, I would say as it relates to, situations around shooting deaths of unarmed, people of color, depending on the age, the parent is going to have the wisdom to be able to discern how much information they want to talk to their kid about. That's the first thing that any parent needs to do. But I would say that parents need to, we all really need to be fighting to ensure that history is properly taught. If history was properly taught, then people would understand why people across the country are outraged that this unarmed situation took place. So to me, it always goes back to education. We have to ensure that, that we're in control of what our kids are learning. And the parents really are in control because, y'all can boycott a school as quick as, those teachers did a few years ago. And I think that, that the civic engagement, we need to tick it up. So.
And teach our children how to have a defense, right?
Yeah.
I've seen youth boycotts and different things like that, and youth-led, very powerful. And so, to the various maybe organizations that are watching, what type of message would you like to deliver to them?
I would say be unapologetically, authentic and stay on the mission and stay focused. Don't be reactionary, be strategic. That is how we win. This is a marathon. It's not, a 9-second sprint. So that's the advice that I could give and offer. Then I would say ally yourself with organizations that may be fighting, systemic issues. You have to align yourself and ally with them and be an accomplice. And don't be embarrassed about being an accomplice. Like on Facebook early last week, after the video had surfaced of a mood, I put on Facebook, I said, look, if you're really down for social justice and you want to post about, this man's murder and how you think that it was, horrible and it was a great injustice to humanity, then, don't keep your Facebook posts on private, like make that public.
Exactly.
Because we have to be loud in order for change to come, and we have to be united.
Yes, I totally agree. It's not a cute trend to just jump on the bandwagon, right?
Yeah. It's not a hobby.
Right. This is like the fight of our life, and so those people that are willing to say, enough, I'm going to stand up. I'm going to speak out. I definitely would admonish you to continue to do that. Continue to fight for, quality education. Continue to have your voices heard. And not just say, we're going to do it this one time, because like you said, this is a marathon, right?
Right.
I mean, it doesn't take a civil rights expert or anything like that to be able to speak up against injustices, right? You don't have to have a fancy title. It's just everyday people, one person at a time, saying, this is the tone that we want for our nation. This is what we don't want to see, and enough. Right? Just saying enough. One person at a time, one family at a time, one community at a time. And that collaborative voice has power. And it also lets our future generations understand that this is the point in history where we said enough.
Right? Absolutely.
Right. And so I thank you for coming. If you have a final thought you'd like to share, or how people can get in contact with you, please share that.
So I'd say my final remarks would probably, I would say they are, the civil rights movement had its icons, but the civil rights movement would have been nothing without the thousands of countless, nameless people that were involved with the movement. We will never know their names. Some of them died, some of them lived. And there were white people whose names we won't know that were part of that movement. And, I'm thankful for all of them. So.
Me too, my brother. Me too. So thank you so much, Nehemiah, for your time and coming on and sharing this valuable information. We will see you again. I hope you have a great day over there in Oklahoma and keep staying cool. And so.
All right. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. And so, for you parents who are watching, we at National Parents Union want to hear from you. You could leave a comment during this week's shows, or either email me, Christina, at nationalparentunion.org. You can also go to our Facebook page and, contact. We want to hear from you about how you feel about school reopening up. What would you want to see prior to schools reopening, and just those safety measures, those protocols that you are seeking to make sure that your children continue to thrive. And so you have been watching Managing Day to Day with me, Christina Laster, and National Parents Union. I hope you're all well. I hope that you're thriving. Goodbye, America's beautiful children. We love you. We will see you again on Managing Day to Day tomorrow, same place, same time. Have a wonderful day. Be blessed. Goodbye.